Welcome to Elements for Metabolomics training video number 2. In our first video, we showed you how to publicly obtain data from the internet and then use our workflow dialog to load and process data. We'll follow up on the first video by first going over the aspects of the main window so that you understand how the software is structured and to gain some comfort working with the software on your own. Secondly, we'll go over the organized view where you can assign groups and decide how you want to summarize your data set. And then thirdly, we'll go through the sample view where we'll highlight and use many of the 6 main window regions to review our data analysis. I will now start by highlighting the aspects of the main window. For those of you who are previous customers of Scaffold, you will notice that this has a very familiar look. Okay, so there's 6 points or 6 main areas of the main window that I'd like to go over. The first is the navigation bar, which are these 7 icons on the left-hand side, from organize all the way down to publish. And these 7 icons basically walk you through the process of analyzing your data set. And it's a really nice way to work through your data. You start at the organize after you've analyzed it and work all the way down to publish. Makes it very convenient and easy to use. The second part is the main menu up here. And the main menu up here consists of these 6 drop-down boxes, but they allow you to do mostly everything you'd want to do in an experiment just from a main menu, similar to Microsoft Word that you're used to if you've used programs for a long time. And under things like file, you can reanalyze your data, which is always nice. You can save your data set or save as if you've made changes and want to keep multiple copies. Under edit, you can have library manager and change the libraries you're using, as well as things like experiment. This is where you can set how you want to normalize it, whether you want to normalize to an internal standard or other ways. And export feature over here lets you export both your attributes, some stuff for downstream analysis like MetaboAnalyst, or even SQL type queries that you can use in Excel downstream. So that's the second part of the main aspect of the window. The third of these icons here, as well as these summarization boxes, drop-down boxes, and I'll go through the summarization and display type later on in the video. But these icons are just quick ways to either print or save that you're pretty familiar with as well if you're used to Windows programs. The fourth part of these thresholds and filters, and these allow you to basically control the number of metabolites you're going to see. And I'll show you that in a second. And the fifth one is down here is this dashboard. And the dashboard down here shows the current number of metabolites that are displayed, as well as the total number of features and the total consensus features, as well as the total number of features. You can see that's 14,000 here. Now, if I go over here and filter, like I said, combining that, and I type in RESV to try to filter out the resveratrol, what we should notice is that now this dialog box shows it says showing 4 metabolites out of the 155, as well as the 4 metabolites of resveratrol are shown in the main window. And this is called the main display window. And we'll go through that more in detail later in the video. So this is a good overview of those 6 sections, but for time's sake, I won't spend any more time on these. But if you want more detailed information on each of these, I encourage you to read the user manual, which can be found in your Elements documentation folder. The manual really provides you with extensive details on all aspects of the software, and it's a great resource for answering many of the questions as you start using the software on a routine basis. That being said, if you ever come across a question or a problem outside of what the manual provides, please do not hesitate to contact us. You can do this easily by going to our website at proteomesoftware.com and filling out the web form we have under support. You can also contact us via email at support@proteomesoftware.com or call our 1-800 number. So it's 1-800-944-6027. One of the nice aspects of our small company is that your questions will be directly handled by a member of our support staff in Portland, Oregon. Now let's go through the Organize tab and where we can assign groups and do summarization. We know in this experiment we have 9 samples from 3 different 3 different concentrations from 0 micromolar, 200 micromolar, and 20 micromolar, as well as 3 different samples. So I'm going to define 2 different attributes, one on concentration and one on sample. So let's start with the first attribute. Over here I'll click Add Attribute, and what it's going to do is ask you to define the first group. So the first group I'll type in is concentration, C-O-N-C. And in the first attribute I'll put 0 micromole is the lowest concentration I want. Go back here and click Add Attribute, and I will do 20 micromole. And what happened here is I actually made an error here. I actually typed the wrong thing. So what if I do? I click Edit, and it pulls it back up, and I can change it to make it proper here. So it's a nice little thing. Then I can add a third attribute and put 200 micromole. Now I've added the first attribute. Let's add our second attribute. And the second attribute here, if you want to add a new attribute, you should pull down this drop-down box, and you click Add New. And in this case, I will add sample. In this case, it'll be sample 1, and pull down here, sample 2, and sample 3. Now, one of the nice features is there's multiple ways to apply these attributes to samples. So I'll show you the first way. First way is to click on a sample and drag the attribute you want. So here's the attribute there, and now 1 micromolar, and it's also sample 1. The other way to do that is to use the control button here and highlight the samples you want, these 3 samples here, and then right-click on it, and you can choose sample 1 here under a menu. And then sample 1 will get applied to all those. Same way is I'll do that same sort of control and highlight the 3 that are 200 micromolar, right-click on it, and apply the 200 micromolar concentration. And it's there. And now I'll do the rest of them. Now that they've all been applied to the samples, what we can do is choose how we want to summarize them and apply the summarization, whether we want to summarize them based on concentration or sample and relate those. So over here, what you can do is over here in summarization, you can click on here and pull down the drop-down box and click Edit. And in here, it'll come up a window box which will allow you to edit your experimental design. And in this case, there's 3 aspects of an experimental design. First over here is CL, which is your comparison level and what we want to compare. The second is biological replicate level, and the third is technical replicate level. So what we have here is we've got concentration, and we'll drag it, and that'll be our comparison level. We're going to compare the 3 concentrations. And the next attribute group here that we'll drag over is sample. And sample is not, in this case, it's a biologic sample 3 different times, so we'll leave it at the biologic sample. And then finally, the technical replicate is on the individual MS sample. And then over here, you can choose whether you want to summarize it by both concentration or on sample or MS sample. We'll leave it at sample here, and we'll click OK. And now the software will automatically organize your data into concentration, the second subgroup of each sample, into the biological replicates, and you'll see that right here. As well as if you go over here and you click on this button over here, you can see columns that are hidden, and the one thing you can do is click on Spectrum File and see the actual file that you've associated with each of these samples as well. It allows you to see that. Now that we've finished the organized view, we can look at the samples view and see how our attributes have been assigned to each sample in the main table. We can also change how they're grouped. So originally they're grouped by individual samples here. Up here you can see where the summarization is. But we can also pull it down and summarize based on concentration. So if we click the button here, drop down box and say concentration, what will happen is that now each of the samples will be collapsed into a concentration group, and this will be the average concentration, log 10 precursor intensity of that group. We'll go back to the individual samples. You could also go to MS sample, summarize, and this will now summarize each of the samples, show you the individual log 10 value of each of the samples, as well as you'll see the attributes listed at the very top, but you'll see the values for each of those. I want to now go through the rest of the table. For each row here contains a metabolite cluster. And the first column of the cluster here, this number 1, is just used for numbering. The second just shows you whether it's visible or not in your table. You can actually click them off. The third is a star, and the starring is useful because it allows you to choose metabolites of interest for later for filtering out. If you want to just export those, or as you'll see in future videos, it allows you to choose what you want to visualize and do heat maps to. Additionally, if you starred some, you can actually click up here on the star filter, and it will just show you only the compounds that you've starred or not starred. Sorry. So if I go over here and click on this, you'll see all the compounds. These are the 4 resveratrol that I starred earlier, plus these 3 glutamine have been starred. If I click back, it'll go back to showing all the metabolites. The next section we come up to is the scoring section. And basically you have the overall ID score, which is the main score, tells you how good your identification was. And that's made up of these 3 subscores: the mass accuracy score, the isotopic distribution score, and the MS2 score. And those are sort of self-explanatory in how they work. And then the 4th score is an XIC score. And the XIC score is not used to roll up in the ID score. It's just there to tell you how symmetric your chromatography peak was, and also provide you some insight in how well your HPLC performed. We basically do it in a feature called clusters and groups. And a cluster here it says cluster right here, is a set of metabolites that share common features but also have unique features as well. So these 2 L-glutamines here are part of a cluster where they share some common features but have different features. Within an individual group, let's go down to the second one here, you can actually click on it and pull down the drop box. These are called groups. And in the groups, these list all the compounds that share all the same evidence. Thus, you can't differentiate among them. There's no difference evidence. But some features obviously score better than others based on that the features assigned to those are slightly better. They just hit it a little bit better. So more than likely, it's these top few, but these other had the same evidence, so you couldn't quite differentiate between them. The next 4 sections are accession number, molecular formula, molecular weight, and retention time. And those are, again, pretty self-explanatory. The following values over here, as I've talked earlier, are the log 10 precursors for each. And I showed you earlier you could actually group it by, in this case, I'll group them by sample. And when you group it by sample, what will happen is you'll actually see the summarization get changed into an individual sample. So we can also here, if we want to, we can actually filter out some. And we'll filter out here resveratrol. And if I type in RESV up here, you'll see I filtered out these 4 compounds. And they've been starred. So you can see that. I can also change the star. I can actually add it to, if I double starred here or make it blue stars, then I have different types of stars. So you can make it as a gold star, blue star, or it can be gold and blue. And that allows you to have different subsets as well within your things. Now additionally, because earlier when we did the analysis, we chose to report unknown metabolites or unknown features, what you can do here is drop the threshold to 0. And if we do that, drop the threshold to 0, what happens is all the features will now be displayed in the main page table. And because there's so many features, this takes a second. But once it displays them all, we can scroll down to the very bottom and we'll actually see all those unknown features that weren't assigned a specific metabolite. Let's see if I can do that for you here. You go way down. And you go way down below the thousands of metabolites. So here we are. See, these are unknown metabolites, and you can see their scores as well as how good their XIC scores. And in some cases, you can use this molecular weight information and time to maybe assign something that you knew you put in here. Here's a compound here. It's got a pretty good XIC score. It's got pretty good intensity, and it's consistent. But the database you use didn't quite have the MS2 information or the other information to assign it properly. And it's something you can explore on your own. This will end the training video number 2. In the third video, I will go through the metabolite view and library view. Thank you for your time and have a nice day.